Salutations from space and aloha from Earth. This is Gemini Brett of More Than Astrology with another conversation for the 13th flower Venus work. And I'm very excited to speak today with Victory Lonnquist about Standing Rock, and something that I feel is so important for us all to be very much tuned into. And hopefully Victory can share with us how we can participate in several ways. So, Victory, how in the heavens are you?
I'm really good, Brett. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here and really honored to be part of your work. And thank you for inviting me here.
My pleasure.
My Venus is in Cancer, so I'm very Venus-y.
Yeah, and Venus in Cancer and a Gemini sun for you, right?
Yep, Leo rising.
And that's fine. I literally just this morning interviewed Maria Stark, our dear friend, and she's a Cancer sun and a Gemini Venus. That's kind of fun. We'll switch it up. And I mean not to speak so much today about the astrology. People can hear more about that in this project. The project in general is about honoring the archetypal ascent of the global goddess and the return of the divine feminine in her queenly and radiant essence. And so it's nice to be speaking to a radiant queen and to help call attention to perhaps the most powerful and purposeful and important movement, and so much more than that today, which is Standing Rock. And many people out here will have heard about Standing Rock and many will not have. So at your pleasure, please just tell us more about you, Victory, and about Standing Rock.
Okay. Well, I'll give you my bio's a little long, but basically I have a background in healing, really. The Western medicine side of that is that I'm an emergency medical technician. I'm a remote wilderness EMT, Coast Guard medical person in charge, doula, craniosacral therapist, former firefighter, search and rescue, avalanche search and rescue, PADI rescue diver, goes on and on. And on the Eastern medicine side of things, I'm a minister, I'm a unity chaplain, I'm a former Buddhist nun, I'm a Lakota sundancer, and a healer. I can see energy and spirits around people, and am very, very deeply called to the Indigenous path. I've been walking the red road since I was 19 years old, and I am 41 now. I have a degree in Native American Studies, Indigenous Studies, and went on walkabout and spent some time with Aboriginal elders down there, writing a book, and also in New Zealand with Maori elders, and have been working here in our community, doing intertribal events and working with Indigenous First Nations and Native people here. So, Standing Rock. Standing Rock is really deeply a call to prayer. And it's a call to prayer protecting the sacred. In this case, that is water. Mini Wichoni is Lakota for water is sacred. So the history of that is that Dakota Energy, which owns Dakota Access Pipeline, DAPL, as you may have seen, no DAPL, they basically found loops in something called eminent domain. Eminent domain, you may have heard of, which is a way to literally seize land, and it's usually by the government. It's usually used for, trains and big things that the government has to put in order to help our country. DAPL found a way to go through an amendment to use eminent domain to take land, even though they are not government, they're a private institution, and they would do that by splitting it up among 12 counties. If the 12 counties agreed, then they could do that by eminent domain. That small loophole is really meant for tiny things like bike racks or a skateboard ramp, just tiny little things, not for a gigantic pipeline. And the problem with that is that if they go through that loop, that also means they get to bypass the EPA checks for environmental protection. It also means that they bypass, and definitely illegally bypass, consulting our tribes. The Dakota Access Pipeline goes all the way through the Dakotas and to Illinois, actually, and goes through sacred land and burial sites of our Native American peoples, and specifically the Standing Rock Sioux. So the children found out about this, and it was the children that started this movement, which I find very interesting. A small group of children ran from North Dakota to Washington, D.C. to raise awareness. And the elders of the Standing Rock Sioux met in council at a place called Sacred Stone, which is where I was doing medical, around a fire, 20 of them, and agreed to create this movement. They made the call out to all the Indigenous peoples and non-Indigenous around the world, saying, please come help us. They expected maybe 40 people, and to date, we've gotten about 25,000.
Wow.
All colors, yeah, all colors, all tribes, all religions, whether it's shamans from Sweden, or it's Mexica dancers from Mexico, or it's the Maori, or it's Tlinkits bringing a canoe all the way from Juneau, Alaska, or whether it's you and me showing up in solidarity, people have come and have answered the prayer.
It's so amazing and beautiful. I think, two-part question. One, a lot of people are hearing this call of the prayer and hearing this call to come to Standing Rock, and might not be able to do so now. And how can they help out otherwise? And the other part of the question is, how did you receive the call, and how did you get there? Maybe you could answer the second first.
The second first. Okay, got it. So I hold water ceremony myself. I was very honored to work with the 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, and the eldest, and who is the matriarch, is Grandma Agnes Baker Pilgrim. She is a water carrier and one of the salmon people. She does salmon ceremony, and I was very blessed to work with her on numerous occasions and learn water ceremony from her. I also did water ceremony at different events and festivals and led in that way. So when I heard about the call and that we were protecting water and that it was, all Indigenous and non-Indigenous, I knew that I had to go. I felt it spiritually. I had an invitation from a woman called Elena White Eagle. She's the head of the Native school out there. And at that time, they needed curriculum and teachers to come and help Native children, which is amazing, Indigenous education. And so I answered that prayer. I loaded my truck up. I decided to go solo because I wanted to stay in prayer with the water along the way, and didn't even know really that I would be traveling literally parallel with a body of water pretty much the whole time. And it was amazing. So I went out there by myself. I got there to discover that Native school was closed. And it was the weekend, and I was like, what do I do now? I want to be of service. And so I ended up at Sacred Stone Camp. So there are 4 camps, for those of you that don't know. There is Oshatisakwan, which is the big overflow camp. And inside of that camp are several little camps, one being Red Warrior. There is our Frontline Sacred Grounds camp, who are the people that go down and offer themselves in prayer peacefully, knowing that they could be arrested to protect the bones of their ancestors that were bulldozed through. So much love to them. Then there's Shichangu camp, which is right across the river. And they're kind of what I call the mellow camp. They're really sweet and yin. Hawaii camp is in there. So it's just this kind of like nice little aloha vibe. And then up at Sacred Stone, I call Get Stuff Done camp. It's the camp that's preparing for winter. They're the kind of the heartbeat of the movement, where it all started. And so I ended up at Sacred Stone, and I got in late, and I just crawled in the back of my truck and went to sleep. And I woke up to someone going, "Is there a medic? Is there a medic?" And so I sort of tumbled out of my truck half asleep and like scrambled around trying to find materials to treat this person. And someone walked by and said, "Oh, great, Victory's the camp medic." So I was like, all right. Native school continued to be closed because the kids were sick, and it obviously was meant to be my service. I got quickly to work gathering people to be a part of the medical team and set up a medical and herbal clinic so that we could do both, offer both, ideally offering them the more natural solution where we see fit, but very busy, lots of lacerations, cuts, bruises, burns, head injuries, diabetes, upper respiratory infection. When I got there, the whole camp was sick. And once I was of service, I was just determined to like get the camp better because this is the heart of the movement. We can't have the heart sick, right? So I whipped up raw honey and garlic and cayenne pepper and literally went around like the mom, talk about Venus, right? Giving them spoonfuls of honey, like getting clean spoons. And like these giant, beautiful Lakota brothers that look like tall grizzly bears. And I'm like little me, feeding them a spoonful of honey. So it was really good. And I think it bonded me with the community, right? And so we did that for a while. And as I really sat in the prayer and really began to become aware of like what the greater prayer was here, which is really the healing of the feminine, right? Because Native belief is that women are the water carriers. And there's been so much trauma to the feminine. There's so much trauma to water. It's just, it's this continual thing. And listening to these women's stories and hearing that, I began to open more to my gifts that I had sort of been hiding away, not wanting to culturally offend anyone. And as I did that, people started asking me for healings and started referring to me instead of a medic as a medicine woman. And that's not a term that I use just because I'm concerned about cultural appropriation and, wanting to be respectful. So it was a deep honor to be named that. So yeah, that's what I did. My team and I, we were asked to help with ceremony. And so I was holding the medicine for ceremony all night long, not ayahuasca or anything. It was a traditional Native ceremony. So that looks like wiping dancers off with the eagle fan and just being aware of the energy happening there, sitting among the buffalo. And then I go to sleep for about an hour and I would wake up and do medical all day. So it was a lot and it was powerful. I mean, it was just amazing. So that's my story. I can tell you a little bit about the second version later about the Wellness Center.
All right. Yeah. And for folks who kind of want to get involved with this movement, I think one thing is, are there online resources where you would suggest people go to learn more about it and learn about the history of the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation and learn about the history of this movement in particular? And
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty vast, but what I would suggest and what I've suggested to most people that ask me is Sacred Stone Camp. If you just Google that, Sacred Stone Camp, and then you can read about, their movement, frequently asked questions. You could go to Red Warrior Camp. That's another way, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. Just keep in mind that they're different camps, even though it's all the same movement and Standing Rock is the area. Each camp holds their own energy and their own way of doing things. And some donations go to one camp, not all of them. Just be aware of those things. I have offered myself as an on-the-ground point contact, especially if you're interested in going as a doctor or a medic or a nurse or any type of healing, and really calling out my beautiful healing goddess community. If you are a Reiki master or a craniosacral therapist or a doula or a Rolfer, or if you pour tea, like Brett or Omar, and that's your gift, please do come. You are needed in that way. It's an important part of healing that is taking place, and you can certainly contact me for that. That's an option. My public Facebook page is Victory Moon. If you just type in Victory Moon, you'll see me pop right up, and you can send me a message that way is a way you can do that for sure. Yeah.
And for folks who can't get there, so we can contribute economically, send donations, come together as well. I mean, I had the opportunity, the honor to hear Victory speaking about Standing Rock and her experience there. Just last weekend at a community gathering here in Seattle, a water prayer ceremony that I think was maybe inspired by Pepper Proud and Yaima, and all the pieces came together really beautifully. And I feel maybe we'll hear a song from Pepper as we close down at the end here. But if folks can't contribute money or presence, you certainly can contribute prayer and connection to the water. And I think that this is something, one thing that really touched my heart when I heard you speaking to our community last weekend, Victory, was the extension of an invitation for us to be this movement, and that involvement and that support is not cultural appropriation. I think there's a lot of fear from the white community or non-native communities that there isn't a welcome for us, or that because our ancestors are the one who committed this genocide, and we could go on and on, but everyone knows what I'm talking about, that there isn't a place for us there. And you hear some of that type of comment from some native people in the Facebook feeds and this kind of thing, but that for the most part is not what's being spread, and that was not your experience there, and you were invited there. And even with your caution of your experience in this community, in this culture, in this track of spirit, and your caution to engage with cultural appropriation as we should, you were invited and turned from medic to medicine woman, right? And so you extended at this ceremony this invitation for us to come out and bring the crystal bowl altar that was the centerpiece of this meditation, and these things that I think that we've learned, we could say, in festival culture and community. And I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to that a little bit.
Sure. Thank you for that, Brett. Yes, I totally get that. I've been working in Indigenous communities for a long time, and that was actually why I brought Grandma Aggie to Beloved, because there is this hunger, right, for that Indigenous wisdom, and there is that door that's been partially closed. But I just want to reiterate that the door is open. And in fact, when you arrive to Standing Rock, because hopefully you're coming, you will hear the elders say again and again, if you are here, you are family. You are Oyate. Oyate is the Lakota word for family, for people, right? If you are here, you are our family. And me, I've been working in these communities for years. I have never felt as accepted and honored and respected. There's no barrier. I mean, it's amazing. And those that had barriers are starting to slowly come down. It's really about forgiveness and letting go. Because please understand too, the other side of that, besides the non-native and natives, is that you have natives there in the same camp that have been mortal enemies since the 1800s. I mean, the Crow, for example, are the scouts that helped Custer come and find the Sioux and slaughter their women and children, right? And so the Crow and the Lakota have been mortal enemies. I watched Crow and Lakota sit there and have ceremony together and embrace each other like family. Not to cry. It's so beautiful. And the 7 bands of Sioux who haven't been together since 1863, the Battle of Greasy Grass, coming together in a good way. So it's not just a non-native native thing. It's all together about releasing our past and our trauma and forgiving and embracing the greater cause, which is it's time to unify. It's time for solidarity. Our mother and our water is at extreme danger now. And it is time for us to stand for the sacred, both within and without, right? And Grandma Aggie, she teaches that we've gotten out of right relationship, not only with earth, but with water. And, if I'm 41 years, so if I was married to somebody for 41, right, thinking of that marriage to water, and I just kind of stopped thanking them and I started taking them for granted and just started using them, I'm going to drink you, I'm going to shower you, I'm going to pee you, I'm going to do whatever, wash my dishes, and just using them, that relationship's not going to be very good, right? But if we can remember, before we go and grab that glass of water, as we turn on our shower, when we look at a lake, to honor the spirit of that water and say, thank you. Thank you. Because water talks to each other. And that water that you're honoring is the same as you honoring that water within. We're 80% water, right? So this is deep. This is really about honoring the sacred within and honoring the sacred around us. And that is reminded and called in. And so even if you can't go, and even if you can't afford to contribute, what I'm asking for is just that right remembrance of water and earth and our relations out there, the trees and our animals and our bird friends. And B, to please hold the prayer. Yeah. Connect in with us and feel us and send love that way. And the other thing too is that I am calling in sacreds. So maybe for you, it's a crystal that your grandmother gave you that you have on your altar, and you feel like it should go to Standing Rock to help with the women that have been abused in their lives. You know, maybe for someone else, it's a small jar of water from their favorite lake that they grew up, that they have really good memories about, you know, and I'm collecting these sacreds and bringing them for our altar at the Wellness Center, which is the other thing that I would love to talk to you about. Our Shichangu is the Rosebud Reservation, and when I got down there, where sacred stone was pretty abundant, I found that Shichangu had no medical personnel, no donations, and nothing really to treat the camp. And so I was asked to help with medical, and then asked by the elders to help. And so I've created a fundraiser. We're trying to raise $18,000 because it's minus 45 in the winter over there, and we can't have our patients and our people cold. And so we're raising an Arctic dome, insulated, calling in shelving and carpets and, you know, all the infrastructure. We would like to add to that an all-wheel drive and a snowmobile for transporting patients across snow, because we have to get them to the ambulances, even to the highway, which is a couple of miles down the road. And my previous request, your sacreds. So bringing those prayers from home and those prayers from all over our community and putting them in the altar at the center of the space that are healing the people that are standing for the sacreds.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, being with the water, you know, I heard the story about a water ceremony from Grandma Agnes. I guess it was at Beloved. I wasn't at this one, and so, you know, I'm retelling this so you could tell it better, but I heard it from our brother Eric Nez, and he was saying how there was, you know, she spoke about, you know, it just touches my heart that you are all here and in prayer, and I hear you speak about returning to connection to the earth and to the water and having your ear to the soil, and so here we are in this water ceremony, but I look out here and I'm seeing these thousands of red cups, and you know what, you didn't know you were going to drink today? I mean, it's this water ceremony, and so here's my cup, right, and shows kind of this goblet that she brought with her. And I love that kind of grandmother wisdom where it's basically without really judgment or, you know, finger pointing. It's just kind of a, hey, think before you drink, right? Yeah. And in that essence as well, just to, I mean, it's such a miracle at this time. I think a lot of us are called to have a return to nature and to bring nature back into our consciousness and that connection. There's also a pretty amazing thing about being able to turn something and hot water comes out of another thing, you know, and that gift, and to remember to be in a place of gratitude just there, and water hears that. So I had the great fortune. I mean, I think my first kind of understanding of the power of water came through Masaru Emoto's work, who a lot of people are familiar with, Hidden Messages in Water, in these books, where he just really showed very scientifically that our consciousness, right, and our intention can literally like realign the geometry of water molecules and can heal polluted water, and that water that you love will carry a rather different signature than water that you say, I hate you. And I really encourage people to look at that work, and at least just look at the images. It's very profound. But in Hawaii last year, I had the great pleasure to be in a hula class and got to hear some of the water medicine stories of the islands. And we were speaking about Kane, right? So there in the hula tradition, I mean, there's kind of a deity, we could say, like above the waters, the Kanaloa, like at the surface, that is this water that we share. And then there's a Kane, who's like the depths of the waters and in the dark and the hidden places. And there's a power there, yeah. And the teacher really encouraged us to come into right relationship with water, and that consciousness can heal the water. And that what Emoto shows as well in this prayer, it's not like, I'm so sorry, we're so horrible, because you're literally putting that consciousness into the water at that point. It's thank you so much, and we love you, and water is life, and you are so important, and I give myself to you, and let's be in this union. And so this teacher spoke about receiving water in a good way, and then giving water, and the importance of sweat, and the importance of dance, and the importance of being in that communication with the water that comes in and moves out as well. And I think just that awareness for each of us individually, it's so easy to just fill up a glass of water and drink it because we're thirsty. Just to take that moment of thank you really does so much. And when this movement that has grown already, and it's going to grow a lot more to 25,000 people, you said, having come through, and for it not to be in the ears of everyone, for it not to be on the lips at this time where we're speaking, which is October 14th, 2016, of the two principal presidential candidates, have never spoken about this movement, about Standing Rock, about this pipeline. How can we bring awareness to that? And it's a shaky territory that I face all the time of, I want to shake people awake. And that can, like, in an effort to help release people from fear, I find myself, I can spread fear more than healing. And that's not what I want to do. But if we ask the water to spread the news, and we do that just by engaging prayerfully, in gratitude, with intention. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And it's exactly what we're doing here, right? I spoke, you were touched, you wanted to share this with your group. Like, this is where we do it. We fill up our hearts with that water of love, and then we share and we pour that water to someone else, and then they get filled up, and then they pour to someone else. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason the major media is not covering this. They don't want to. Obama doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. How do you explain about sheriffs releasing dogs on peaceful praying protectors, including a child? How do you explain sheriffs arresting an 86-year-old woman who is praying with her chanupa in a teepee? How do you explain sending in the National Guard and sheriffs in full riot gear and giant trucks that look like they're straight from Afghanistan to people that are literally sitting on the ground praying was saved? And you can't. And there's a lot of fear mongering going on, and they've arrested press. That's their new thing, is our constitutional right? Freedom of press seems to be gone. Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Is going to go and turn herself in. They have a warrant for her arrest for literally just filming. That's what her job is. They arrested 2 Unicorn Riot media people, and then they've just arrested 2 more. And the woman that ran just got an Oscar for documentaries. She has a warrant for her arrest. So why? Right? Because it's a fear. It's a fear of showing the ugliness of a police state and a patriarchy that wants to suppress the feminine. That's my 2 cents. But certainly, how else could they explain why they're badgering peaceful people that are standing for the water? And please understand too that, I mean, imagine how you would feel if your family was buried in a cemetery by your house where you grew up, and an oil company came through and had no regard for your land, going onto your yard and that graveyard that was right next to your family's house. And then they found out that your ancestors were buried there. And an hour later, they bulldozed through their bones. Yeah. And you know, and they stood there and they watched those men do that to their ancestors. And even in that moment, they chose not to fight. They chose to put down anything of violence and to stand in a good way. And that, to me, makes them heroes. To choose prayer over violence in that moment. And those spirits were disturbed, and we've done ceremony. We all have marched out there and we've prayed in a good way. And that is the perfect image for what this movement is. That we are no longer allowing people to bulldoze through the sacred. And that you can fearmonger, and you can threaten us, and you can arrest us, and you can send unmarked cars to follow us when we're on Facebook Live for 20 miles and tailgate us. And you can do all those things, but you will never break our prayer.
I would save this for the end, but I think for you, I'm going to drink this cup of Venus tea in this moment.
Thank you.
And refill it. I'm drinking very old pu'er tea. And I think I will speak a little bit astrologically here. A lot of people in our community have asked me, how is this movement? How is this clarity? And how also has this chaos? How is it resonating in the heavenly harmonies? You know, is this heard? Is this something that you see? And it very much is. And when I think about this tea, pu'er, which is like the mother of tea, the old tea, right? Like literally like these hundreds of years of age, these gigantic trees, and then the process and the tradition of storing that tea and aging it, you know. And some of them actually will hold the cake under the full moon every month, and you know, but that essence of the mother, like the grandmother, the tea, and so rooted, because just like any tree that's reaching into the heavens, it has just as much tree underneath the ground in the places that we can't see. And I'm fond of saying that the branches will not reach the heavens until the waters have drank, or the roots have drunk from the waters of hell. You know, that there is that dark, that suppressed, that inside stuff that we're bringing back. And actually sometimes in this world, and we need to know that it's not all the times, but sometimes our greatest change personally or in community does happen through the painful awakenings and the difficulties. And that when we sit in prayer with such just terrible happenings, you know, that there is a medicine in contemplating the gift that will come in this terrible paper if we can unwrap it courageously, yeah, and move into the medicine that is in this wound. And so when I think of this tea and I fill your Venus cup, and I speak now of this roaring lioness Venus in this Leo cycle that began in August of 2015 and will run until late March 2017, and then she'll shift to an Aries cycle, and there's going to be a bit of the warrior goddess and the Sekhmet, you know, coming online again. And in this study, and people can watch these chapters if they'd like and hear more about the astrology. I'll speak a little bit more about it now, but seeing how the Venus cycle, and this to me is so much reflective of emerging divine feminine, and I think also in some ways a bit of a shift from kind of the riot girl, or what I've been calling the divine feminist, into the divine feminine, who's bringing a power of beauty. One thing you spoke about, Victory, at the ceremony last weekend was that women were invited to come to the front lines because it's always been known that the feminine is the guardian of water. But I would love for you to share just kind of how the elders invited you in that way, or invited women in that way.
Sure. So one particular elder who's a matriarch over there said, women, when you go to the front lines, when you go to sacred grounds, don't dress like a man. You're not a man. Go as your woman. Go as your feminine warrior. Wear your skirts. Bring your hair down. Let them know that you are women and you are strong in solidarity to protect the sacred.
So I'll share in this Venus cycle, which just like we have a new moon every 29.5 days, that's the moon and sun, we have a new Venus every 584 days. It's Venus, Sun, Earth, Venus, Sun. And so we all have Venus on our chart, who reflects the divine feminine expression experience. And that's in the frame of the film that our birth chart, that moment in space-time represents. But we're also born in a scene. We're also born into a movement. And so this greater cycle of Venus will show us an overtone or a meta-goddess, and how we, through our own experience, our own expression, are serving that kind of greater evolution of the feminine. And same for Mars and the masculine. That's not the story I'm speaking to right now. But so you have the Cancer Venus and the very caring nature of nurturing and family and tribe and community goddess is how we would see her. She's reflecting Gemini light, so there's also some playful jester and truth of youth that's meant to be shown in the goddess. And she's an evening star, a visible star, and there's a wisdom there. And there's a wisdom in the cycle that you were born into, Victory, because you were actually born for the first time in modern history where the Venus star shifted a point into the sign of Capricorn.
Oh, my moon.
Your moon, for sure. So some medicine that you bring in with you, and this greater goddess. And what I would say is that as the Cancer loving expression of a goddess who's been through the first cycle where she's had the death and rebirth, and is coming and shining this Gemini light, which allows for some levity and some truth, that she's caring for and nurturing and creating, because Cancer and the feminine is creator, creating space for the true Capricorn goddess, which is the Council of Grandmothers, as spoken by one of my first teachers, Daniel Gemario of Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. That Council of Grandmothers is this like meta goddess that you're here to align to and to speak for and to hold space for. And I love, so you have Venus in the Cancer waters, which is ultimate water ceremony, and doing this to bring light to the emerging Council of Grandmothers. And so, I mean, it's just lived. I mean, I have the honor to know so many beautiful beings and community whose celestial song is so clearly sung through their life's experience, and you are very much one of those. So to speak about Capricorn, it's really important, because this is one of the reflections of why this movement is certainly sung, because Pluto, who is the shamanic shakeup, the hidden hand, and will just clear the plate of anything that does not serve to destroy so there is room for creation. It's been in Capricorn since 2008. And when Pluto entered Capricorn, global financial crisis, because Capricorn, though, unfortunately, it's taught in modern times often as father and provider and lawmaker and rule giver and the police and the government, and very patriarchal kind of themes. You know, my work of what the hell is a sea goat? This should be the she goat. The true Capricorn for me is the trunk of the tree and the roots in the direction north in so many ways. And that essence of that emerging feminine has been so important in our time. And as Pluto entered this sign, we did see global financial crisis. We saw this bailout thing. We'll see how long that lasts. But one thing that's for sure is that the voice of the indigenous from around the world is beginning to be heard, and maybe being spoken in a stronger way. The We Are Mauna Kea movement was very important to me, being in Hawaii often, and to see that the natives were not going to allow another telescope to be built on their most sacred mountain, and one of Earth's most sacred mountains, the tallest mountain from base to
on their crown chakra, on Mauna Kea's crown chakra, it's Piku.
Yeah, indeed. And, I've heard them express it like, whoa, we're going to put attach another permanent headlamp to grandfather, No. And so people spoke up and came together in solidarity and peacefully, and in dance and in prayer. And the telescope wasn't built there. Now, in the same time, and I think this is very important, that we stay tuned to the pulse of other happenings in reality. A telescope was then born on Haleakala, on the House of the Sun, on Maui. And what happens is these gigantic telescopes, and I mean, I'm a space nut, right? So people are like, you must be for the telescope. It's like, no, actually, I'm for the people and for the mountain. But they'll build these new telescopes and then not take the old one down. So there just becomes this whole, I mean, you can see it from the ground. You've been out there, and it's tricky, So, but that essence, that energy, I mean, Pluto's going to be dancing through Capricorn until 2024. And I promise you, we will see the destruction, and it doesn't have to be a difficult one, of false structure and false rules in government and these things that we're told about it, to make space for the return of the true rooted trunk and the wisdom of the earth to speak to us. And not only through the feminine, but Capricorn, earth is a feminine sign. Yeah. And so the grandmothers and the 13 grandmothers, who I've been honored to meet a couple of them, or at least experience their ceremonies. And it's such a beautiful promise of this time. And for these many tribes to come together, and tribes who have been at war for a long time with one another, to sit in solidarity. And as we heard at the ceremony too, old Chinupas pipes, right, loaded with tobacco for the first time in hundreds of years, because this is such an important time. And we can really feel, I think, that this is not going away. And it's an opportunity for us to answer the call that we've heard within, because it's being reflected without. And it's time for us to come into solidarity with this movement, and at least participate with it in our own presence. Yeah.
Yeah. And we need your help. I mean, there is a concern with winter coming that we're guessing we're going to lose about half of camp. And, minus 45 is no joke. I'm born in Seattle, I'm cold when it's in the 40s, so, but I'm going, and I wouldn't do it any other way. I feel funny just being here now. My heart, my dharma is there. It's really, I have found my fulfilled service. And for me, I came home to take care of some things, move out of my house, quit my job, and go, because that's my place, and I'm needed, and I've been asked, and I'm honored. And so, there are quite a few of us on ground that have done things like that and have left their families, and we need your support too, and I think that part of the vulnerability, certainly for me, I don't like asking for help. I'm much happier healing everyone else, but is to ask for that help. Right? Because we have bills and we have, things, but we're choosing the sacred. I lived in Thailand. I was a Buddhist nun there. And, one of the most beautiful things that I saw was people would literally, this one gentleman especially touched my heart. He was so cute and so poor. And he probably was like 82. And every day, without fail, he would ride his bike like 3 miles bring the monks a tiny little bowl of rice, because that's what he could afford, and ride back, because that was his offering. And so in the same way, we are putting the call out to you as a community to honor the sacred. Please give whatever you can to support us so that we can do the work, for the sacred there as well. And so if you feel called to support us personally or as a movement, our Shichangu Wellness Center is what we're working towards. And I don't know, Brett, do you want me to let them know here, or do you want to?
Yeah. Oh yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. So you can email me also if you have questions. I would encourage you to go to Sacred Stone Camp and then look at frequently asked questions. But if you have questions beyond that, because I am very busy, please email me. My email is healingstandingrock@gmail.com. Again, that's healingstandingrock@gmail.com. And then the link for our fundraiser for this wellness center. So just so you know, Shichangu Healing and Wellness Center will serve for medical, herbal, alternative care. It's also going to have a separate women's center that will address domestic violence, sexual abuse, rape and assault, prenatal and postpartum care for pregnant women, which is really not supported in their community. We have about 81% domestic violence rates and 5 generations of trauma. And women who have experienced that sexual assault, usually the only resource they really have is IHS, is just medical care, and that's it. And then they go home. So we have this great opportunity to bring amazing people like you and our community and our healers and be able to hold these women. And that's the prayer, right? The healing of the feminine. So there's a lot of really wonderful things about this center, and our vision is to have it there long after we defeat the Dakota Access Pipeline, to continue to serve our Native peoples. So you can find that by going to youcaring.com, and our fundraiser is Standing Rock Water Protectors 661617 pound. So maybe I can send that link to you, Brett. So that's
please do, and I'll put it right here on the screen, and then I'll put it in the comments section or the description section of this YouTube post, probably both, so people can just click on it and go there. And I was really inspired to hear you speak and to hear our sister Danny and Genity at the ceremony also speak about, look, people who have been like Burning Man folks, village builders, like you have learned to go into harsh environments and create structure and to create beauty and to create village and moving towards permaculture and composting toilet and
village building convergence. Yep.
Yeah, these kinds of things, and I haven't been to Burning Man, and I don't mean to like point fingers, so I hope that's not heard this way, but it is expensive, and it has been something where people can go celebrate, but typically really people of privilege, because it is expensive in these kinds of things, and yet so many people who started going there to party, who've talked to me about this, had a spiritual awakening through that, and were then brought into this new connection to the land. And so many indigenous teachers and elders are coming to speak to the festival community, but many of us also too are finding our way to hearing the voice of the birds and the land, and serving and answering that call through study of permaculture for some of you, or for me it's like connection to the planets and to this most important planet Earth astrology. So I think that we are emerging into, though I guess indigenous would not be the right word, there's something in our culture and our community where we are beginning to access some of the direct teachings and to be able to hear the wisdom and the voice of the elders who have been here for so long, and to come in a way and to feel welcomed and to help us courageously face this fear of cultural appropriation, which is a righteous fear, but also the guilt and the shame that we might hold, simply for the color of our skin. and for being born into privilege and these kinds of, it's very important. So this is part of the prayer and part of my own personal experience that I imagine some of you out there are feeling. So I, like to share that now in this way.
Yeah. And I want to reinforce that at Standing Rock, I just really haven't seen that. I even heard someone say to one of the elders while I was standing in a meeting, and they said something like, oh, well, maybe we can get a couple of, those hippies to help or something. I think they were rainbow people. And the elder like quickly corrected him, and he said, no, we don't talk about our family like that.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. I mean, it's amazing. It's really amazing, the acceptance. And going back to what you said, Brett, about the burners, and we need you. Like, we really need you. We need people that can systematically move into an area and have had experience doing major festivals and events that can set up infrastructure for 25,000 people. I mean, most of my beautiful Native and First Nations families, they've done it at Sundance and powwows and stuff, but those are usually tiny things and they only last like 3 days. So those of us that have lived out for a while and know how to do that, we need sorry we need you. Excuse me.
Yeah, so folks, please answer the call. Give what you can. Maybe organize a ceremony for your community. Bring together a fundraiser. Go physically to this place. Participate with this incredible movement. So much of what we have prayed for so long is happening. It literally is happening, and there is a beautiful resonance of hope when you tune into this thing. And face the fear that is often required to go in a good way. And just to know that as we celebrate the truth that water is life, and we are all water, and we are all connected through this most magical element and source of creation, water. So Victory, thank you so much for what you're doing. And thank you for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule right now to participate in this project, and for making yourself available. I guess my last question in that regard, just logistically, is can you access email and everything when you go back out there? Is there going to be somebody that's going to handle that for you?
That's a great question. So actually, that's something that the community approached me with actually after Culture, is that this sort of group of women formed and said, we want to continue this while you're over there. And for me, I'm a Mars and Aries as well. And so I'm used to like doing everything by myself until I just drop, and to be offered that support of the women to relax was amazing. And it's not just women, of course. And it's also, I just want to make sure you understand that you're welcome. It's people, transgendered people are so welcomed and respected in the community there and here. Two spirits, we call them. So people that identify as women or people that identify as men, just wanting you to know that you're very welcome. So yes, what we need is a support of people back here where they can kind of organize infrastructure, keep fundraisers going, keep prayer sentinels going, and send it over there. Because besides financial support, which we definitely need, we also really need your spiritual support. It is tremendously intense to be over there and be holding the prayer and be doing hands-on healing with people that have experienced that much trauma. And things are rising, and like you said, Brett, like our roots are in hell as well, right? And so we're experiencing that dark coming up through the roots, and then in the body it's like ow, 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 and then out the branches to spirit, right? And so if you're there holding us, going, yeah, we love you, we got you, it makes such an amazing difference. From the media aspect, there is a place called Facebook Hill. I don't get reception there. I'm AT&T. Verizon, I guess, does. But I usually go up to the casino, which is about a 20-minute drive, and has Wi-Fi. It's also where we all do our laundry. Because those just aren't readily available. I mean, sometimes I was going 6 days without a shower. Like, talk about my Venus and having to let go of
Mm-hmm.
being a woman centering around, being pretty and clean all the time. It's now things are a lot better. We have good filtration systems in place, and yeah.
Yeah, and money participates with that, so give and attend. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm like stuck thinking about going to the casino to get clean.
6 days.
Yeah, we've very much been cultured as individuals to believe that individuality and independence is strength. And it used to be ask your neighbors for help if you needed it, and now that's a sign of weakness or whatever. And this is the kind of thing that too has separated us culturally, as tribes one for another. So this is not something that water does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in that prayer, it is also knowing that like we are literally peeing and drinking water that has been around for eternity, and that we all share, and that we are in that one community. So one way that we can connect to this movement of sovereignty and solidarity and standing for the sacred is literally through prayer. Prayer is connecting us all. And you might be feeling this in your body without awareness, that because we are awakening to our gifts as empaths and opening to our intuition, which can be frightening, that we are also feeling the currents of the world. And this is a very important node of power and beauty and strength. And it's a wonderful thing if we can tune in. It will, I think, help you understand some of what you're feeling that you might not be aware of as well.
Thank you for speaking to that, Brett. I can't tell you how many light workers I've spoken with that have considered suicide over the last, year to two. And I just wanted to speak to that on my own. Before I got this calling, I felt that darkness and that sadness. And I'm now also realizing what you just spoke to. So thank you for those good words, that a lot of us empaths are literally feeling the pain of the earth going through. And we think that it's ours, or the isolation, right? We think that it's ours. And that's why, for me, I'm so honored to return to this old way, really, of living in a village. I wake up to teepees and horses galloping across a plain with braves, hair flowing in the wind with eagle feathers. Like, it's amazing. But here we all are, living together and going through it together. And at home, we don't have that advantage, right? Not yet. But we're home and we have Facebook and TV, and we try to fill this void with this superficial energy that's still putting energy in instead of releasing the energy that needs to move and heal. And so I would just really encourage you, if you're going through that and you're feeling that pain, please know that you're not alone. Please know that you're not alone. We're all feeling this entire field of pain healing. And B, please go out and sit with a tree, or take a glass of water, or go to the river, or an ocean is even better, and just be there and help just release that from you. If it's sweat lodge, if it's even when you're in the shower, you can visualize that good water just bringing all of that pain down and all of that negative energy away, and giving thanks to that water. But please remember to do that, because you are so very important. And every one of us has a gift that we bring. And I honor you for that, and honor all of us for bringing it in a good way.
When I heard you speak at our ceremony last weekend, I was inspired to continue this podcast project that I'm engaged with my friend Dave Hoover, a wonderful musician, and it's called The Prophecy of Prometheus, and it's getting into some of the Greek story around the changing of the cosmic council, I like to see it as. And I was really inspired to speak of Chiron, who is the wounded healer and the one who birthed compassion and empathy into the world. And I think it's really important that as we're starting to feel that deep wound and these deep wounds more and more, that we know as we bring our attention to it and our love to it, that you don't grow away from the womb, you don't grow out of it. The medicine grows out of that wound. The medicine grows out of you. And if we can just be true to our own experience and honor that, some of us are going through things that we can compare to the world at large, or people who have been through much darker experiences, and can really judge ourselves for that, whatever. Like, your experience is your experience, and that is part of your gift to the connection that we all share. So, and let's come and do this together and be together and connect through the water and connect through prayer and connect through ceremony and community, and let's all head out there and build things to keep each other warm and to keep each other warm with our love for one another and for life itself. And water is life.
Yes. Can I offer a song?
Please.
Okay. So this is a song that I sang to the female warriors during ceremony, and I offer all of you, regardless of gender or however you identify, to just give you strength during those times that we all have when things are hard and when we are struggling with the wounded healer, and as we move through these times. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Make me strong, make me strong. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, nahoe, ne. Way, hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Make me strong, make me strong. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, nahoe, ne. Way, ne. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Make me strong, make me strong. Oh, Great Spirit, make me strong as a bear. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Hey, nahoe, ne. Way, ne. Hey, ahoe, nahoe, ne. Takuasan, Lamaya, Tankashla, Wakantaka. Creator, I thank you for all of these good medicine warriors that are holding the prayer with us. Meaning, Wichoni, water is life. I thank you for Brett. I thank you for all of you listening, and for all the people around the world that are gathering and holding hands to stand for the sacred. It is time for us. It is time for us to listen to our call, to honor ourselves, to honor one another, and to come in the good way. It is time now. And for this and for all things, I give thanks. Takuyasan. Ishka. Hasyam.
Thank you so much, Victory, for your time. Thank you for being strong as a bear. There's a symbol that folks who are following this 13th flower Venus journey work, and I'll have links in the description for you to check that out too. A symbol that we'll hear again and again, which is the rigid bottle of perfume lies shattered, releasing its fragrance. So releasing that need to be separate and coming in together to share in this emerging power of beauty. And thank you for being that bear who is so strong that we protect not only with claw, but with cuddle.
Woo! Yeah, I love it.
Safe journey, sister. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.